It is time now for The Clash. And while Prince Harry claims to be interested in reconciliation, the Duke's memoirs and TV interviews have taken a sledgehammer to several of his family relationships, including with his stepmother, the Queen Consort Camilla. According to a royal insider, they were speaking to the Sun newspaper, Harry has crossed a red line with King Charles by going after his beloved wife. The source added Harry knew that before he sat down for these interviews, some of the allegations about leaking don't stand up to scrutiny, as Camilla is not guilty in leaking her meeting with William. Palace staff are incredibly loyal to Camilla, and this will go down like a lead balloon. So tonight I'm asking you this. Should the King finally retaliate following Harry's attacks on Camilla? What do you reckon? I know people are really divided on this one. Some people think actually the best thing is for the palace to just keep stum. Dan at GBNews is my email address. You can tweet me at GBNews. Vote in our poll there too. The results shortly, but set to go battle on this. Camilla's biographer, and she was Prince Harry's biographer too, Angela Levin, and the social commentator Joanna Jaju. So, Angela, look, you are the journalist who knows Harry and Camilla best. I imagine you weren't surprised by this attack.
I was surprised, actually.
You were?
I have been surprised. When I did Harry's biography, he was lively and charismatic, and now he looks incredibly ill. And if he's drugged, I don't mean he's taking his drugs, but he looks as if, you know, life is so dull and he's so unhappy and he's so depressed. And
there's no indication, is there, that he's currently taking medication? He opens up about this in his book in a lot of detail, which is why I think it's fair game for us to discuss.
Yeah, he does. I mean, I think he's very unfair about Camilla. I mean, when he said he met her for the first time, it was like being forced to have an injection. I think that's a very cruel, spiteful. There's a lot of very spiteful, cynical
And it's not what he
words.
said at the time. You know, at the time, he was saying, really get on with Camilla. I love her. She's great for my father. So either he was lying then or he's lying now.
Yes.
What do you think, Angela, about this concept of Charles having a red line when it comes to Camilla? Do you think this might prompt him to have any sort of response?
Well, he's very protective of his darling wife, as he calls her, because he knows what she's been through. 20 years of people calling her vile things, but she didn't complain once. That's what's very important. She didn't make a fuss. She just waited until she hoped it would pass over. And that's in her nature, so she's not going to make a big fuss about this. But King Charles most certainly will, but he'll do it very cautiously. He won't just say, you know, go. He will absorb everything and then come to a conclusion, because it's very, very difficult for him. He's a father who loves his son. He and Harry really loved each other, got on extremely well. And this sort of terrible way of hurting your father's loved one...
It's unforgivable. And what's so fascinating is that Harry said time and time again, and Meghan said time and time again, we were left all on our own, we were given no help. Well, actually, Harry himself reveals how much help they were offered, including, by the way, a conversation that Camilla had with Meghan, where she said, look, this happened to me. Just ride out the storm. Things are going to get better. But my suspicion was she never wanted them to be better. But look, let me cross to Joanna Jaju now. I believe, Joanna, you're still backing Harry and Meghan, despite them spewing this bile about their family. How can you justify what they've done, Joanna?
Well, I think that it's important for Harry to put his account out there for history's sake, you know. When we look at, for example, Diana and her interview and the involvement that she had when somebody was writing a book about her, when we look back at that now, because Diana has sadly passed away, we look at that with a lot more compassion. And now, obviously, we look at that in with a lot more context, and nobody is refuting a lot of the things that Diana had said. But because this is, you know, modern day, and we've got social media and everybody's so emotive about it, and also it's clickbait and it sells papers, people think that it's correct to treat Harry differently to how we treated Diana. But actually, all he's doing is putting his story out there after years and years and years of the press. And
Joanna, I'm sorry, I have to say, Diana, a figure who I was very fond of and hugely respectful for, she didn't slag off every single blood relative, every single member of the royal family. She had gripes largely about Charles, but this is a whole different kettle of fish. Do you understand that for Charles, this might be a red line now, the fact that Harry has come for the woman who he loves more than anyone?
Listen, I don't think it matters whether Harry slagged off one person from the royal family or 5 of them. The point is, they both had a story of their account of what was happening to them behind closed doors. And they both publicly had very public and famous interviews. And you can't look at what Diana did as any different to what Harry has done just because...
What about all of the lies, by the way? What about all of the lies in this book? Because you say, oh, we should trust it, it's history. But there's so many lies.
That's your opinion that they're lies, though, Dan. And how would you know whether they're lies or not?
Well, I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how. Because he writes specifically about me and the Megxit story, and he has completely lied by saying that I was working with the palace, conspiring with the palace to break that story. And that is a point-blank lie. So I know there are lies in that book. Because there's one about me. That's how I know.
If you weren't conspiring with the palace, then how did you come across that story? You said
none of your business. None of your business, because as journalists, we protect our sources.
Then how can you possibly say that it's a lie if you can't give us
I will go to jail to protect a source. And Angela, I'm sure you would do the same for your sources. We don't have to reveal who our sources are, but it doesn't mean that the source was the palace.
Well, somebody today said that what he said about Meghan giving birth to Archie in a hospital was completely untrue. They would never let a woman of her age go home within an hour. You couldn't have an epidural and have a hot water bath to give birth to the baby. And there was no doctors who worked there. They just came according to, who asked them to come.
And Cameron Walker revealed earlier as well that there's a whole load of lies in the book surrounding the circumstances of how Harry was told about the death of the Queen Mother. So look, I think, Joanna, this book is filled with lies, and I think more and more of them will be exposed. And remember, the Oprah Winfrey interview, Joanna, had 17 lies. Sorry, Joanna, what point did you want to make?
I wanted to make the point that perhaps maybe it's also credible to say that maybe some of your sources were lying. Just because you had a source that you trusted and you reported doesn't mean that they were potentially lying.
The story was true. The story was that they were going to quit the royal family. I broke the story. They announced it within 24 hours. So what was untrue about that?
I'm not talking about that one particular story. I'm talking about a plethora of different things.
OK, well, the others... the other big story, Kate and Meghan hated each other. True, right? Big row about the tiara. True.
I think the thing that I feel that's terrible...
That could have only come from the royal family. Who else could have come with that story to say, oh, Harry and Meghan are leaving the royal family, apart from somebody who was the staffer or somebody who was actually part of the royal family themselves?
You have no idea. You're speculating. Angela Levin, final word to you.
What I think is terrible is that he's been someone who's really looked after his own privacy. Anything that a paper might write that he thinks is an invasion, he tries to sue. Now, he's given no caring about his family. He's ruined their privacy. I mean, he tells very, very intimate details about Prince William and his father, which I think is actually a great breach of trust, and that you can't trust someone like that who passes things on that are completely unkind and unnecessary.
He's Harry the hypocrite after this book. But look, that was the Queen Consort's biographer, Angela Levin. She was, of course, chosen to be the biographer of Prince Harry as well, and spent a huge amount of time with him, and the social commentator Joanna Jaju. Thank you both. So who do you agree with? Should King Charles finally retaliate after Harry crossed the line, his red line, by attacking Camilla in a series of TV interviews? From Claudia, she says yes, by stripping them of their titles. Angel writes, no, there are signs in the interviews that the absence of any replies or comments is starting to get to Harry. That's true, actually. And from Bob, their handlers are prodding the royal family for a reaction. This needs to be sorted out in private without microphones or press. No more leaking. And your verdict is now, and this is very close, actually. Just 43% of you agree that King Charles should finally retaliate. 57% of you agreeing with the royal family's strategy, which is to never complain, never explain, and just let Harry and Meghan burn out.